Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Untitled Reviews. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Squid Game Season 2, Episode 5. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, we're picking up where the last game left off with Hyungju and her team doing their thing, and it's not smooth sailing. Like, it takes a little, they stumble a little bit throughout all the games. Like, it's never like an easy thing. The first game, what's her name? I think it's Youngmi. She ends up like not being able to flip the thing, and then Hyungju was like, "Oh, flip it the other way," like the thing she's throwing down, and that ended up succeeding. They go to the next one. Young-sik can't hit the thing, but his mom is like, "Okay, pretend it's the guy that scammed you," and he got it. Then it was her chance, and her son was like, "Okay, when it comes to like catching the thing that's almost a little like jacks a little bit, you have to catch the pieces when you toss them up. It's like you talked about like your time in war, like you were doing stuff like, during like the Korean War and stuff like that, or Vietnam War, I believe. So it's like you got this." And she ultimately succeeds. They go into the next game. The shaman lady is kind of panicking and freaking out a little bit because it's like she can't get the thing right and she thinks she's so doomed. She's like, the gods have abandoned us. And then Youngju just slaps the shit out of her twice. It's like, I will kill you before the gods do if you don't get your shit together. And then she did it. A couple seconds left on the clock. They end up, it's up to Hyungju, who immediately is like, "Okay, everyone turn around." I was like, "What was that?" And I was like, "Oh, is it because," I would assume it's, but I was like, "You're wearing pants, would that matter?" But it's like, still, and Hyungju does it, and it's like, right, we're down to the wire, a couple seconds, and across the line, you're like, I figured they wouldn't die, but you're still like a little nervous. And I love that it's like the entire time you're only focusing on that team. I'm like, what about the other team? But when you see it zoom out, the other team is still alive. I was like, okay, so everyone won this particular round. And slowly but surely, we're seeing everyone else do. For a good chunk of scenes back to back to back, we're seeing people win. And then you get to the later chunk, and then you start seeing people dying again. So it wasn't a lot of teams that well, at least what we saw initially. We are talking about, it is a lot of people in the grand scheme of things, but we saw a lot of wins, but we did see a lot more losses than I think about, just considering the total later on we find out is like 100 people died. So that's why I was thinking it's interesting, because the number we're at right now after game 2 is where we pretty much were, roughly speaking, a little less, but around where we were after the first game 3 years ago. So it's just interesting how that works out. But yeah, like, and what I think is so beautiful is, at first I thought it was the only people that were cheering were the people that did not want to be here, because you saw the support, like, go, like everyone was cheering. Because it's also the thing of, if you're watching these people, the later and later you go, the beneficial thing that you have, because you get to watch people's technique. Because like, I think at one point Gi-hoon's like, or it was either him or In-ho being like, "Oh, they're walking backwards to save time, because it would take more time to like situate yourself, turn around and walk back." So it's just like, get better at walking backwards. So it's like little stuff like that. Everyone's picking up these tactics that they can apply when it's their turn. So the benefit of not being the first team out type of situation. So it's kind of similar to like the glass bridge situation in game 5, because it's like, right, it benefited you being in the back. Well, except for, well, if you were kind of like Gi-hoon and almost forgot what, because it had been so long, you forgot which glass was the right one at the first leap, So it's kind of a similar thing in that regard. So, but obviously very different circumstances, so it's not fully equatable. But either way, it came down to the final 2 teams. It's Gi-hoon's team and another team. And I love them cheering each other on and being like, "Hey, we'll see you guys at the other end." It's like, yeah, let's do this. Like, everyone make it through this. And their team was tearing through it pretty quickly. Like, everyone did it on the first try. Like, Junhee did her thing first try. Junbei as well. Daeho, he did it like so fast and flawlessly and stuff like that. It's actually really good. Then we got to In-ho, and I'm like, they've got like, I think at this point they were like 3.5 minutes left on the clock. I'm like, yo, you're in a 4th game already. But then I was like, yeah, but In-ho, I was like, is he gonna sabotage it? And he kind of does. I was like, once again, it's just like Ilnam. It's like, there was no guarantee he was going to make it through those games, but, he wanted to have fun. So I guess Inho wanted to really put the pressure on them. So and he's just beating himself up because he failed, especially because he failed super hard. And it's like all the freaking what's the word? I said it earlier. The sabotage, where he literally flings it behind him, so they have to walk further backwards to get the spinning top, come back and let it rip again. And luckily it happened, but it's like they only had like 30 seconds at this point in time. And so Gi-hoon does his thing, pop, 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 does it 4 times, but the 5th one was flying away. Inho reached his leg out so that Gi-hoon technically kicked it a 5th time. They made it through, seconds on the clock, and you're like, yeah, they came out victorious. Sadly, the other team did not. I don't know if they'd made it through the 5th game or not, or whether or not they... I couldn't really tell whether they were close to, like, because there was a few teams we saw. There's at least one team we saw that was like right there at the finish line, but died. Like, if only they had like 2 or 3 more seconds, they would have passed the finish line, but they died like right there before the finish line. So it's like, it sucks. But yeah, like, but it's still that thing of, yeah, we're celebrating, and then immediately you have to watch the other team, the final other team, like, especially because it's empty. You're the only other people left, so like watching the other team die, just you have to stay in that silence, you know? So, and they go back. And now it becomes this situation of, some of the people being like, wait, how many people survived? Wait, there's even more people that survived. Because once again, we find out 100 people died, so it's down to 255, and some people are upset. It's like, not that many people died. Recounted, I'm sure it was actually way more people that died. It's like, do you know how fucked up that sounds? But it's like, I get it. Everyone wants their money. Because the more people that die, the more money that's available. The more people that survive, the less money that goes around. So it's like, we need people to die. But I mean, we already knew it was fucked up, but just like, it was kind of like a, you said the quiet part out loud type of situation. Like I said, it just adds a new dynamic, because like these conversations never came up where we were just, I mean, except for, and it comes up this episode, Gi-hoon brought up the whole like, yeah, people getting murked in the middle of the night while everyone's sleeping situation. It's like, but like no one not a large chunk of the contestants was like, oh my god, we need more people to die. That was never just a thing. It's just kind of like, a lot of people might have thought it, but no one actually said it, I mean, I guess that's the benefit of this squad too, jumping ahead a little bit. No one from this squad went on the murder route like Deoksu and his crew. Like, I gotta check his name again, because I might be misremembering it. It is Deoksu. But once again, like, yeah, people might be a little trashy and messed up, but I think you can make the argument that just makes you realize how much of a piece of shit he was. To be fair, he was like a criminal, so he was a gangster. So it's like, yeah, versus like, I mean, we don't know if there's anyone here that's kind of along that same line. I mean, some people have done some terrible things, some fraudulent stuff, and they're in debt, yada, yada, yada. But, like, being, like, a gangster like he was and kind of a terrible person, there's not, that we're aware of, there's no one here. I mean, well, the closest would be Inho, because he's part of the games. He's, he's the front man and everything. So that kind of puts him on the same level, especially when he's throwing out little bits of sabotage here and there. So it's just an interesting thing of like people being upset by that. But obviously you have different people like Young-sik's mom being happy when she sees Junhee, like, oh my god, you survived, you're okay, it's good, and she's going around being like, hey, because once they accumulated the money, basically everyone's going to walk away with 78 mil now. They went from 9 point some mil to now 78 point some mil. And his mom is like, okay, like once we get out of here, you guys could come over to my house talking. I mean, because obviously Shaman Lady's off on her own, and we're not going to bother like dragging her over because she's not the nicest person. But talking specifically to Youngmi and Hyungju. And it's like, oh, you guys could come over to our house. It's like, oh, we actually don't live that far apart from each other and stuff. It's like, yeah, we could do this and do that. It's actually really sweet and beautiful. And also, I think it's so interesting. We are doing the voting process way more. Like, maybe that did happen in season 1 and we just didn't see it except for episode 2. But I'm like, I don't think that ever came up. I don't think, because like, I don't remember that being a thing of the voting happening at the end of every game. I think that might be a new rule that they implemented. I don't, because I thought they had to decide we're going to do the vote, but I guess it's like, right, there is a good chunk of this group that doesn't want to be here. To be fair, like, once again, people left and came back, so that's why this dynamic's a little bit different this season. But yeah, like, they enact a vote, and obviously it starts with Inho, who promises, like, no, I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna take the money I have and the money I'm gonna get and leave. And Gi-hoon's like, right, we have to like stick together. We've got to get the vote going our way. He's like, if we get out of here, don't worry, I will take care of you guys. But sadly, it's like Young-sik, despite his mom being like, we'll pull our money together and then you'll be able to pay off your debt. He says he owes like 100 million, but maybe it's like 100 extra million plus what he already, because I was about to say, like, you take what your mom, because they were going to have like 150 million together. So why isn't that enough to pay off your debt? So that 100 million must be stacked on top of whatever he already owes. So if he does it, like, even with their money combined, it still won't be enough to create a better life for themselves after. Because she was like, oh, we could like, you know, pay off your debt and get to start fresh with a new business and stuff like that. So we'll be good. We'll be able to have a happier life. But Young-sik, despite his mom's warning again, because she had to warn him last vote, he decides to shift to the other side. I figured as much that Jung-bae would, and Daeho looks so disappointed in him because he's like, nah, we're, you know, fellow Marines, we have to stick this out together. Because he was like, Marines, we got to know when to kind of call retreat. We need to know when to back out. Turns out that Hyung-jo also votes to keep in the game as well. So we see a few people stay the same. We see some people change. So it's all around. Some circles that turn X's, some X's that turn circles. So, and it's actually Inho who's talking to everybody. It's like, people died. Like, you see what's happening now. There's even more death because what number 100, he's the one leading the charge, to be like, yo, we can keep going and there won't be much of an issue because, like, oh, we made it through this, we'll make it through the next game. But the point is, yeah, but that's no guarantee that you'll make it through the next game. Like, there's no guarantees in all of this. Like, it'll all be for naught if you do this. You could all end up dying and it would all be for nothing anyway. But that's the problem. These people are so desperate because even he tried to make the point, there's only 78 million that gets split amongst, everyone's going to get 78 million, sure. But the problem is, so many people are so far in debt. He's like, that will only cover maybe 10% of their debt. So it's like, yeah, like, it sucks, but it is what it is. Where it's just like, these people are, you know, they have their vices in the regards of, just like Young-sik is a gambler. He believes like, no, I'm gonna be able to win this. Like, you know, just like Gi-hoon, like that whole like rush of it all, where you're just like, I got to make it through this, you know. And once again, we don't know everyone's circumstances, their situations, but you know, it's all about that desperation, and it, you know, mixed with, sure, a little bit of human greed, but it's also like the human condition to kind of think like, no, I can win this, but it's like, because that one guy tried, because it was Young Me being like, I don't want to be here. I want to go home. Please, I'm begging you. I don't want to die. But the guy's like, my family needs this. My family has no money. So I need to make this happen. But, you know, it's the whole thing of, yeah, but what if you die here? What does that mean for your family? Your family won't even get your body, which they won't. If you're, I mean, either way, you're screwed. It's like, either you survive long enough to be operated on and have your organs stolen from you, or you just burn up initially. I mean, the same result, the same situation is going to be what it is. There won't even be a body to bury. Also, your family will have no idea what happened to you. Because they never clarified that in this situation too. Like, the money only splits for those who survived. At least the last game, if they cancel the game, all that money goes to the to people or family related to the deceased. That's not even an option now. So if you die, your family gets nothing and they also lose you. But for some people, it's like, yeah, that's worth it because I have to take that risk, because it's like, if I'm doomed here, I'm doomed anyway. Because there's a girl that's a part of Thanos' crew. Her and I think she's what, three. She might be, I think she's 388. The guy that she's with, Misu, he was like, why did you decide to keep playing the game? He's like, aren't you scared? She's like, yeah, I'm scared, but I decided to keep playing because it's dangerous in here, but it might even be worse out there what I end up having to face. So might as well take that gamble. So it's kind of like that for a lot of people. It's like I'd rather face death and disappearing and no one knowing whatever happened to me versus like what could happen to me if I go back out there with my debt being what it is. And then obviously when the vote comes down to it, like despite Inho's speech and everything, because everyone's like, all we need to do is one more game. Because the guy from 100, he's speaking up about like, right, the number went from 9 point some mil to 78 point some mil. He's like, after one more game, it will definitely increase to 240 over 200 or whatever. But it's like, yeah, but that's not a guarantee. So not unless it's going to be a situation of some people are going to start making sure other people drop dead during the third game. But like, there's no guarantee. Like, what happens if only like one person dies in the next game? That will kind of be, it wasn't even worth that type of situation because everyone's got it in their head. Just one more game, and we'll be settled. It'll all be good. And so we sit down with other people and kind of find out their reasonings for why they did what they did. One person that decided to stay was 333 Myungi, but he also wanted to leave because he now knows Junhee's pregnant, and I think he wants to be, it's like, right, that is still your child, so you want to be responsible. So I think for him, it's like, I have a reason to live now. I think it's a good thing he did not tell Thanos and them, because they're like, oh, you think you can leave? You owe us, yada, 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 so there's no way we're going to let you leave when you still owe us money. Like, you have no freedom. You're our slave, and, and I even love, he's like, oh, you're going to win it all and pay me back? And then Myungi's like, but if I win it all, that means you die too. So why would I bother paying you back if you're dead? And Thanos had to kind of look. It's like, I think you're popping so many damn pills, your brain is fried. And I even love Myungi kind of threw that in his face. He's like, oh, that's why you lost the competition. You must have forgot your lyrics at the very end. And, that almost got your ass whooped. But luckily, Inho stepped in last time and this time as well. Well, he didn't have to directly step in, but his presence was enough to make them go, all right, we don't want an ass whooping from Inho again. So... But either way, his motivation is like, I need to make sure I get out of this because Junhee wants to leave, and now knowing she's pregnant, I'm going to like try to do right by her, and maybe I'll get out of here with the little money I've got to try and fix all that. So I don't know. He just wants to, I guess, help her out, get her out of here because she wants to get out, and he understands her motivation for that. So we found out about Youngsik's situation. Like I said, he owes way more than he lets on. Then there's the Hyungju situation. Her circumstances are, it is about the procedure, which we also learned that's why she didn't want to play the game, because her procedure wasn't done. And I love that it's like, well, there were things I didn't want you to see. And Youngsik's mom didn't get it, but Youngsik was like, stop being nosy and stop it. And then Hyungju was like, well, I still have more procedures, and then his Youngsik's mom was like, oh, okay, you still got stuff down there, and it's like, oh, I thought so, because your breasts were really big, and it's just like kind of laughing about it. But now we find out, like, right, she's got a lot going on. Basically, her entire world got flipped upside down. Things were perfectly fine until people found out her circumstances of, oh, I want to be a woman. And then her life got turned upside down because she was in the army. I don't know what the army stance on that. I'm sure that's a different thing when you're out of the army. Being in the army is a different thing. Like, the army doesn't care. Like, once you've fulfilled your service and you're out, that's on you. But like during that, I mean, I don't follow enough of the military news or whatever to know like, how do you handle that? And we're also talking about the U.S. where I live and where I'm from versus Korea's military situation. Because obviously in the States, there was like, I mean, I don't know if that's actually, once again, I don't follow enough military news and stuff, so forgive my arrogance. I still don't even know if I don't know if don't ask, don't tell is still a thing or not. It might be like a thing of it, because I think that's one of those. It's not written in the rules. It's just kind of implied. So I don't, whatever the case may be, Hyungju's like mom cried a lot, kind of got abandoned by friends, got fired from her job, once again working in the army. So for her, it's like she just doesn't want to have to deal with everything that comes with this. It's like there's a certain freedom, but also loneliness that came about. Like, right, you're able to be yourself, but it's like to be fully comfortable, so I don't have to explain myself to anyone. Probably wants the procedures done all the way, and that's very expensive. And be able to start a new life. It's like I want to go to Thailand with Youngsik. It's like, oh my God, there's plenty of people like you. It's like, oh, there's plenty of like beautiful people who've transitioned, more beautiful than other women and stuff like that. And Hyungju was like, yeah, I've heard that too. And I love that Young Six mom was like, I'm not gonna go as far as calling you beautiful, but I'll say you're fine or whatever. And they're laughing about it. And then Young Sik is like, well, mom, you said that she was basically unattractive or something like that. It was a nice moment, you know. And obviously things are complicated with Young Mi because she's kind of disappointed in her uni for going down this route, which I was like, oh. But it seems like they're good, and Young Mi now understands her circumstances, so they're good by the end. I mean, it still probably doesn't fully erase everything, but still. Junbei, we found out, like, right, he's in a lot of debt and stuff like that. Just everything in life not kind of going the way he wants it to. And even Daeho tried to drag him back over there. He's like, I get it, you're embarrassed, you don't want to sit down and eat with us, but come over here. He's like, even when I was up there, I questioned it for a second. So he's like, I just as easily could have pressed circle instead of X. So, and Inho's like, right, we're not in any position to judge, because at the end of the day, even if he was on their side, it wouldn't matter. There was like I think the difference was like maybe a dozen or a dozen and a half different votes. So it wasn't as close as the vote from 3 years ago, nor the vote that took place in episode 3. But either way, it's like, right, we got to rest and get prepared for the next game. Once again, everyone's on that belief, one more game. And Gihon, because of the trauma of last time, it's like, cool, let's set ourselves up and kind of barricade ourselves a tiny bit. Really, it was more like, hey, let's sleep under like the beds or on mattresses, so it's harder for people to kind of sneak up on us and as easily get to us. We'll have someone watch, and they're like, is that really necessary? But Gi-hoon brings up like, yo, I was here when people like killed other people in their sleep. He's like, you have no idea how much this game can change people. And so I love that sequence when it plays out with Gi-hoon and Junbei sits by him, and he blames, because he's like, yo, I'm sorry I didn't give you that money he's like, dude, I never resented you for that. He's like, I'm sorry it played out that way, but he's like, I honestly didn't have the money at the time. And then he asked him, it's like, is that why you came back? Like, that's why you played the game initially, is because your mom was sick? He was like, yeah. But it's like, why did you come back? And he was like, my plan was to end this game to make sure most people got out of this alive. But now he's like, is that even possible now? Because his squad's not going to be able to find him. They don't even know where to begin looking for this island. And he's kind of on his own. And it's like, he's done his best to try and keep as many people alive. But, well, some people have turned against him because they call him a fraud, this and that, despite him saving so many lives in the first game. But, that's all for nothing. Because it comes down to, well, what have you done for me lately? Is kind of the traditional human perspective on that. And they obviously this situation is also when the strike flashback we got from Gi-hoon kind of came, but we saw a little bit of that last season in the very same circumstances last season. But because him and Junbei talk about it, because there was a whole thing of, if you volunteered not to kind of go on strike or whatever, they give you severance pay and just kind of let you go. And I love Junbei's like, the reason why I didn't is because of you. He's like, I was laying beside you. You were crying for your mom and saying that you were hungry. He was like, I cried? He's like, oh yeah, you were crying. And he's like, I knew that you were such a little wussy. He was like, I knew that if I left, you'd be crying that you're left all alone. And I love this little back and forth between them. It's like, oh, you blame me for everything that's wrong with your life. It's like, am I the reason why you got married? And Junbei was like, no, but you're the reason why I got divorced. But it was all for the purpose of getting Gi-hoon riled up. It's like, see, that's the Gi-hoon I know. So it's like, all right, when we make it out of this, one more final game, and then we're all going to vote to leave. And he's like, then we'll celebrate with drinks. And Gi-hoon's like, it'll be on you then, paying. He's like, there you go again. Gi-hoon, cheapskate, super cheapskate, king of cheapskate. I was like, I love that. I thought that was a beautiful moment, And once again, the added pressure of not only just trying to keep people in general alive, even those you don't know, because you came to care about the people that weren't your weren't people you know, but now it's like, yo, here's, innocent lives are still innocent lives, and you've got one by your side of someone you actually do know. So then we had the situation with young Six mom going to the bathroom. She goes with Junhee and eventually Hyungju, and I love that she puts on that whole. She didn't go as crazy as what's her face from last season. I believe it was me, Neo. I could be mistaken. Once again, crazy lady from last season. How she had her whole bathroom thing with like, oh, if you want me to, I'll start pissing right here. But I love that like grandma tried to, Young Six mom tried to go from the perspective of, I'm sure you have a mother or sister or whatever, and it's like, oh, like the fact is, the moment I turn 60, I have to start wearing a diaper now because I have a small bladder. And she was pleading and pleading, and the moment the person opened the door, she's like, thank you. And it's just, I love that. I was scared because I'm like, well, is anything going to pop off in the bathroom? It's like, well, we know the bathroom situation last season was like, well, Sabiak used that to kind of investigate a little bit. Wasn't a lot she could, glean from all that, but, that's about it. But this situation was just more about the emotional toll. Junhee's just being like, no, I'm fine, I'm good, I'm okay. She's trying to put up a strong front. Because I think it's the thing of, like, she's barely holding on and kind of letting anyone see, beyond the mask that she's wearing. She'll crack and she breaks down in the bathroom because she's like, I'm scared. And Young Six mom is there to comfort her, and it's like understandable. Everyone here is scared. So I'm curious to see what happens next, because while Gihoon and Jungbae were having their conversation, we saw that Inho was still alive, and it's like, well, home dude is going to probably like sabotage some stuff this game too. He also obviously did the smart thing. He calls himself Young Il, which apparently his name means like first, and I guess Seong, Gihoon's last name, means last name or something like that. So I was like, okay. Because once again, I was about to say, like, I brought this up previously. He's been around your brother, so of course he'd know your name, Inho. So you don't want to make that mishap. But we'll see how long it is before Gihoon finds out. But now it's time for the third game, and everyone makes their way there, and it's called Mingle. Basically, it's going to be like a merry-go-round, and once it stops, it's going to pick a number, and you basically have to find that number of people and then make your way to the room. I guess it's almost like probably a combination. It's kind of, I guess, supposed to be a little bit like musical chairs. Like the moment the music stops or whatever, almost you have to take a beeline to try and take a seat. So there's a limited amount of rooms, and the moment people get in there, So now the complicated thing is, well, if it's even numbers, like for example, Hyungju and them, it's like, well, I'll go with Youngmi and Yongsik and his mom can be together. But if it's 4 people, we can lump together. But then what if it's an odd number, like 3 or 5? Like, it's like, well, or 5, more than 5, we'd have to try and grab more people nearby. But what if it's only 3? It's like, well, we'll have to figure it out as it comes. So the episode literally ends with the game beginning. So we don't know whether it's as simple as that, or if there's going to be multiple stages to it till we dwindled out. Like, could it be like a 3 or 4 round game where it's like, oh, we did it for round 1. Cool, come back, we're doing it for round 2. And you have to do it over and over again to heavily dwindle the numbers, maybe. So it's going to be interesting to see, like, kind of a nice way to kind of tease us, because we don't, at least with the last game going from episode 4 to 5, we had already seen the game get played, so we kind of knew what to slightly expect. Well, for the most part, know what to expect and how it was going to play out. This, we have no idea. We're like at the very, very beginning of the game, so it's going to be interesting to see where all this ends up taking us. There's also a little, we catch up a little bit with Noel. Once again, I'm saying the name different every time. Number 11 amongst the staff. She gets jumped by people who are part of the whole harvesting organs and body parts situation. They're threatening her. It's like, oh, you think the officer is going to help you? It's like, no. Like, you were warned, and if you don't want to play ball, I mean, we could cut your face up, maybe even cut off one of your fingers. Next time, we're going to have an issue if you interfere. So she just calmly puts on her mask and gets ready for work like the next day. So how she handles that's going to be interesting. Is she just going to straight up murk the guys? Under what circumstances? And I brought this up previously. It's interesting too because there's only 2 episodes left, 6 and 7, and we still are only at the halfway point for the games. Like, this is only game 3, so I'm like, either like, because even if you like manage to kill a lot of people before you get to the sixth game, you still would have to play it. I don't think it's going to be a situation of the games being a situation of like somehow you manage to only be the only survivor and it's game 5 and you haven't made it to 6 yet. I think you would still need to play all 6 games regardless. That's the only way I can see something like that happening. Maybe. Not less they end this off on a massive cliffhanger and we won't know until season 3 how it all concludes. Like, not unless that's how this shakes out, that like season 2 is just a part 1 and season 3 is the part 2 to it. Like, not unless that's because the seasons were filmed back to back. So I don't know. That's a lot for to go down in 2 episodes. But once again, you kind of have some idea of the pacing if you go by like season 1. If you had the 9 episodes, making it only 7 makes you go, what the hell is going to go down? What the hell is the pacing of the season going to be like? Just with, once again, we're at the halfway point with the game, so episode 6 going to probably be like not less game 3, 4, and 5 are fast as hell type of situation. So that's the only way I can see it. But it's going to be interesting to see where this all takes us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.